The cold darkness of the night was endless. The alien girl lay in the frozen ruins of a world that had already given up on her. The cold pressed against her skin like sharp blades. Each breath came slow, weak, and painful. The stars above seemed far away, like they belonged to another universe. Her people had left her behind. She remembered the moment their ship lifted into the dark sky. She had called out, screamed their names, begged them to wait. But no one turned back. They had abandoned her because she was weak, because she was sick, because she slowed them down. To them, she was a burden. Now, she was alone. Her body shivered, but not from fear. It was the cold, the deep, merciless cold of a dying planet. The wind howled like a beast in the empty night. Her thin clothes gave no warmth. Her hands shook as she held them close to her chest, trying to protect what little life still remained in her. Her mind whispered cruel thoughts. This is the end. No one is coming. This world will be your grave. But her heart refused to stop beating. Somewhere inside her, a small voice still whispered, "Hold on. Maybe there is hope." The ground was hard and covered with frost. The ruins around her were silent, broken reminders of a city that had once lived. Tall stone walls, cracked and leaning, cast shadows in the pale moonlight. She could almost hear the echoes of voices that were no longer there. It was like the world itself had died, and she was the last witness. Her stomach ached with hunger. It had been days since she had eaten. She had found a little water frozen in broken pipes, but it was not enough. Her legs were weak, her steps slow. She tried to stand, but the strength left her almost at once. She fell back to the ground, her knees scraping against the ice. She closed her eyes. For a moment, she thought about giving up. It would be easy. All she had to do was stop fighting. Let the cold take her. Sleep and never wake again. But then, a sound. Her eyes snapped open. The wind still blew, but beneath it was something new. A deep hum, faint but growing louder. She lifted her head, her ears straining. It was the sound of an engine. Not from her people, their ships were gone long ago. This was something different, something strange. A light cut through the darkness. Far away at first, then closer. A glow in the night sky, moving slowly across the ruined land. Her heart began to race. Fear and hope battled inside her chest. What is it? Who is it? Her people would never return, but she knew that. But could it be someone else? Could it be another race, another being, traveling through this empty place? The sound grew louder. The ground trembled softly under her body. She pushed herself up, though her arms shook with weakness. Her eyes locked on the light, desperate, hungry for salvation. And then, for the first time in many days, she whispered a word. It was not her language. It was a word she had learned long ago in the old stories told by her people about a species far away. A species both feared and respected. Human. She breathed, her voice cracked and soft. The word tasted strange on her tongue, like both fear and hope at the same time. The ship descended slowly, its metal body shining under the pale moon. It was small, nothing like the great vessels of her. People! Its engines roared, echoing across the ruins. The wind from its landing swept over her, carrying dust and ice into the air. She covered her face with her hands, trembling not from the cold now, but from something else. A feeling she could not name. Was it relief or terror? When the ship's engines fell silent, the night seemed even quieter than before. The only sound left was her rapid, shallow breathing. The hatch of the ship hissed open. A shadow appeared in the doorway. A tall figure standing against the glow of the ship's lights. She stared. Her heart thundered in her chest. It was not one of her people. Not any alien she had ever seen before. The figure stepped forward, heavy boots striking the frozen ground. A strange mask covered its face, but the shape was clear. Broad shoulders, strong arms, tall body. A human. The alien girl's lips trembled as she whispered again, this time louder, more certain. Human. She wanted to run to him. She wanted to beg for help, to fall into his arms. But her body was weak. She could barely move. She stayed where she was, lying on the icy ground, staring at him with wide eyes full of fear and hope. The human stood still for a moment, looking at her. His mask reflected the pale light of the moon. Then, slowly, he stepped closer. His movements were careful, steady, not threatening. For the first time since she was abandoned, she felt something stir inside her. Not just fear, not just hunger. Something deeper, hope. And in that frozen night, in the ruins of a forgotten world, a new story began. The human arrival. The human stepped down from his ship, his boots crunching against the frozen ground. The icy wind rushed around him, but he moved with steady strength, as if the cold did not scare him. His figure looked tall, powerful, and strange against the broken ruins. The alien girl's heart pounded. She had heard stories of humans. Stories told in whispers around campfires when she was younger. Some said humans were dangerous, wild creatures who fought until the last breath. Others said humans were protectors, beings who refused to abandon even strangers. She had never known which story was true. Now, here stood a real human, and her life depended on the answer. The human paused, scanning the ruins with sharp eyes. His mask covered his face, but his body language was clear. He was alert, cautious, ready for anything. He carried no glowing weapons like her people, but a strong rifle hung from his shoulder. His hands looked steady, ready to defend or to strike. The girl tried to move, tried to call out, but her voice cracked, weak like broken glass. Still, the sound reached him. The human turned. His gaze fell on her, a small, fragile figure, lying on the frozen ground. For a moment, he did not move. He only stared. Perhaps he was wondering if she was alive. Perhaps he was deciding whether she was worth saving. The silence stretched, broken only by the icy wind. Then, slowly, the human stepped closer. The alien girl's breath caught in her throat. Her instinct screamed to run, but her body had no strength left. She could only watch as the human approached, his shadow falling over her. His boots struck the ground with heavy rhythm, steady and sure. When he stood before her, she could see the strange glow of his mask. A pair of human eyes looked out, sharp, alert, but not cruel. She searched his gaze for answers. Was this the end? Or a new beginning? The human crouched down beside her. He did not speak at first. Instead, he studied her, his eyes scanning her thin frame, her trembling hands, the frost clinging to her skin. Then, in a low voice, muffled by the mask, he spoke. "You're alive." The words were simple, but to her, they felt like fire in the cold night. Someone saw her. Someone knew she was still breathing. Tears burned at the edge of her eyes, though they froze almost instantly on her cheeks. She tried to answer, but her mouth was dry, her voice broken. She whispered again the word she had said before. Human. The man tilted his head, surprised that she knew the word. His expression softened. He placed one hand on his chest. "Yes," he said. "Human." Then, he pointed at her, waiting. She understood. He was asking who she was, but she had no strength to speak her name. She only shook her head, her lips too weak to form the words. The human nodded, as if he understood without needing more. He reached into a pouch at his side and pulled out a small packet. Tearing it open, he revealed food, dry, simple, but rich compared to the emptiness in her stomach. He broke off a piece and held it toward her, Her hands trembled as she reached for it. For a moment, she hesitated. What if it was poison? What if this was a trick? But her hunger was stronger than her fear. She took it, her fingers brushing against his glove, and placed it in her mouth. The taste was strange, salty and heavy, but it filled her with warmth. Tears rolled down her face as she chewed. For the first time in days, her body remembered what it felt like to eat. The human watched her silently. When she finished, he handed her water from a small metal bottle. She drank slowly, the cold liquid soothing her throat. She felt life returning, drop by drop. He waited until she was calm before speaking again. What happened to you? She wanted to answer, to tell him everything about her people, about being abandoned, about the endless cold. But her words were broken. She could only shake her head and whisper, left behind. The human's jaw tightened. His eyes darkened, not with anger at her, but at the cruelty she had suffered. He looked away, staring at the ruined city as if he could see the ghosts of those who had betrayed her. Then he looked back, his voice firm. You're not alone now. The alien girl's breath caught. Those words, simple, powerful, struck deeper than any weapon. Her people had abandoned her, but this human, this stranger, spoke as if he had already chosen to stand by her side. The human reached out and carefully lifted her into his arms. She was light, too light, her body weak from hunger and cold. His grip was steady, strong, and warm. She gasped softly at the sudden safety she felt. For the first time since she had been left behind, she felt protected. He carried her toward his ship. The alien girl's eyes widened as she saw the inside. It was small, filled with strange machines and glowing lights. The air inside was warm, a sharp contrast to the frozen world outside. The human set her down, gently on a padded seat. He pulled a thick blanket around her shoulders, tucking it close so no cold could reach her. She clutched it tightly, her body trembling not just from the cold, but from the strange feeling inside her chest. She looked up at him, her eyes wide, her voice soft. Why? Why help me? The human stood for a moment, silent. Then he removed his mask. His face was strong, marked by hardship, but his eyes carried a quiet fire. He looked at her with a calm that felt like truth itself. Because no one deserves to die alone. He said, her heart broke and healed in the same moment. She lowered her head, her eyes wet with tears. She whispered again, not in fear this time, but in gratitude. Human. And as the ship's engines hummed around them, she realized something she had never believed before. Hope was not gone. It had come to her in the form of a human who refused to let her die. *A. Fragile, trusty alien girl sat quietly in the human ship, wrapped in the heavy blanket he had given her. Warmth slowly returned to her thin body, but her heart was restless. She could not decide if she was safe or trapped. The human moved around the small cabin, checking machines, adjusting controls. His strong hands pressing buttons she did not understand. She watched him carefully, her wide eyes never leaving his back. Every sound of the ship echoed in her ears. The hum of the engine, the hiss of the air systems, the soft beeps of strange devices. It was so different from her people's ships, simpler, rougher, but somehow stronger. The human turned and saw her staring. He gave a small nod, as if to reassure her. But she quickly looked down, clutching the blanket tighter. Her heart pounded. With confusion, why had he helped her? He could have walked away. He could have left her in the cold. Yet he carried her into his ship, fed her, and gave her warmth. She had been abandoned by her own kind, but saved by someone she was taught to fear. Her people had told many stories about humans. Some were frightening humans, were violent, dangerous, always fighting, never giving up until they destroyed their enemies. Others said humans were protectors, stubborn creatures who would risk their lives for others, even strangers. She did not know which version stood before her now. The human crouched in front of her. He placed a small packet of food on the table and pushed it closer. "Eat," he said simply. She hesitated. She wanted to take it, but fear stopped her hand. Her eyes lifted to his face, searching for a trick, a trap. The human only waited, calm, patient. Finally, her hunger was stronger than her fear. She reached out with shaking hands, took the packet, and opened it slowly. The food inside smelled strange, but it filled her empty stomach with warmth. She ate in silence, while the human watched with quiet eyes. When she finished, he poured water into a cup and handed it to her. Again, she hesitated. Again, she gave in. The cold water soothed her dry throat, and she closed her eyes for a moment, letting the relief wash over her. The human's voice was low when he spoke. "What happened to you?" Her lips trembled. She did not want to remember, but the memory was too strong. She whispered, "They left me." The human's eyes narrowed. He leaned closer, his voice steady. "Who left you?" "My people," she said softly. Her voice cracked with pain. "They said I was weak. I slowed them down. So, they left me behind." The human's jaw tightened. His eyes burned with something she did not understand. Anger. Not at her, but at the cruelty done to her. He shook his head slowly. "Cowards," he muttered. Her eyes widened. She was not used to hearing anyone speak with such fire. Among her kind, weakness was shameful. To be abandoned was expected. No one would fight for someone like her. Yet this human called them cowards, as if leaving her was the crime, not her. Weakness, her chest tightened with a strange feeling. She did not know if it was fear or something else. Silence stretched between them. The human finally stood and walked to a storage box. He pulled out a small device and placed it on the table. The screen glowed with a map. Strange symbols moved across it. He tapped the screen, showing her their position, then pointed outside toward the cold ruins. She understood. He was trying to show her the danger still out there. But why? Why bother? Why waste time explaining anything to her? Her lips parted. She whispered the question burning inside her. "Why? Help me." The human froze for a moment. Then he turned his head, his eyes steady and firm. "Because you're alive," he said simply. "That's enough." Her throat closed. No one had ever said that to her before. Not her parents, not her people, not anyone. To them, being alive was not enough. You had to be strong, fast, useful. But this human spoke as if her life mattered, even in weakness. She looked down, her hands clutching the blanket. She felt tears rise, but she blinked them away quickly. She did not want him to see the human return to the controls. He pressed a switch, and the ship gave a low rumble. The cabin lights dimmed. They were moving again. She leaned to the window, her breath fogging the glass. The frozen ruins slid away below them. The world that had been her prison was shrinking into the distance. Her chest rose and fell with uneven breaths. She was leaving that place behind, yet her fear did not vanish. What if he changed his mind? What if he decided she was too much trouble, just like her people? The human glanced at her reflection in the window. His voice was steady. "You're safe here." The words struck her heart like a fire in the cold. Safe. She wanted to believe it. She wanted to trust him. But trust was a fragile thing. She had been broken once. Could she risk it again? As the ship cut through the night sky, the alien girl wrapped the blanket tighter around her small body. Her eyes followed the human's every move. He was strong, calm, and mysterious. She could not see into his heart. But one thing was clear. He had chosen not to leave her, For now, that was enough. Yet in the back of her mind, a question lingered like a shadow. Was this human truly her savior, or just another test of her fragile hope? And so, in the warmth of the human ship, surrounded by the hum of machines and the glow of strange lights, the alien girl took her first steps toward something she had never known before. Trust * the deadly chase. The ship moved silently through the night sky, carrying the human and the alien girl away from the frozen ruins. Inside, the cabin was warm, but the girl could not rest. Her body was safe, but her mind was restless. Her people had left her behind, and she knew the ones who abandoned her were not far. They would return. They always returned. The human sat at the controls, his sharp eyes watching the screen in front of him. Strange glowing symbols shifted across the map. He tapped the display, frowning. His voice was low, but his tone was serious. "We are not alone." The alien girl's heart jumped. She sat up, clutching the blanket close. "What do you mean?" Her voice was soft, almost a whisper. The human pointed at the screen. Several red marks moved across the display. They were small, fast, and heading toward them. "Ships," he said. "They're coming." Her blood turned cold. She knew who. It was the very ones who had left her. They had not finished their work. If they found her alive, they would not let her live. And now, they would not spare the human either. She trembled. "They will kill us." The human turned his head. Slowly, his eyes steady and calm. "Not if I stop them." The girl's breath caught. How could one human fight against several ships? Yet his voice carried no fear. He moved quickly, pressing switches, tightening straps, pulling a long rifle from the wall. His movements were sharp and certain, like a soldier preparing for war. The ship shook as it gained speed. Outside, the dark sky lit with red flashes. Enemy vessels broke through the clouds, their engines roaring. Bright lights cut across the night like knives. The chase had begun. The alien girl clung to the seat, her body trembling as the ship jolted from side to side. The human's hands moved fast on the controls, dodging beams of fire that cut through. The air, explosions lit the sky as ruins below were torn apart. Her eyes widened as she saw the enemy ships. Sleek, sharp, and deadly, they moved like predators, circling, closing in on their prey. Her heart pounded so hard she thought it might break. The human's voice was steady. "Hold on." The ship dived sharply. The girl cried out, clutching the seat tighter as the floor seemed to fall beneath her. Enemy fire streaked past, missing by only a breath. The ship twisted, turning between broken towers and shattered walls. The human flew low, using the ruins as cover, forcing the enemy to chase at dangerous speeds. The girl's eyes filled with tears. She wanted to scream, to beg him to give up, to run, but the human's face stayed calm, his eyes sharp and alive. He fought not with fear, but with fire. A loud crash shook the ship. One of the enemy blasts had hit near the back. Sparks flew across the cabin. The lights flickered. The girl screamed, but the human only gritted his teeth, forcing the ship to climb higher. "They won't stop," she whispered, her voice shaking. "They'll keep coming until we're dead." The human's answer was quiet but firm. "Then, we fight." He pulled the ship upward, rising above the ruins. The enemy ships followed, their weapons glowing with deadly light. The human slammed a switch, and panels on his ship slid open. A pair of cannons rose, glowing faintly. He looked at her once, his voice strong. "Stay down." The girl ducked behind the seat as the first blast fired. The ship roared with power. Bright streaks of light cut through the sky, striking one of the enemy vessels. The explosion shook the night, scattering fire across the clouds. Her eyes widened. One ship was gone, but more came. 3, 4, maybe 5, circling like hunters around a wounded beast. The human ship twisted and rolled, his hands fast on the controls. He fired again, striking another. The girl felt her heart race. He was fighting them, all of them, alone. And he was not afraid. But the enemies were many. Their fire rained down, shaking the ship with every near strike. The hull groaned under the pressure. Warning lights flashed on the screen. The girl's fear grew. "You can't fight them all," she cried. The human's eyes burned with determination. "Watch me." Another blast lit the sky, and another. Enemy fell. The others grew desperate, pressing closer, their weapons glowing brighter. The human pushed the ship into a wild spin, diving through clouds, weaving between broken towers. Each move was dangerous, each turn a gamble. But his hands never shook. The girl pressed her hands to her chest. She could barely breathe. She had never seen such courage, such madness. Her people would have run, would have left her again to save themselves. But this human refused to run. He fought with every breath, every strike, as if her life mattered as much as his own. The ship jolted hard. An enemy blast tore across the side. Smoke filled the cabin. The girl coughed, her eyes burning. "We're going to die." The human's voice cut through the smoke, sharp and unyielding. "Not while I'm still breathing." He slammed another switch. The engines roared louder, the ship burning forward with sudden speed. He charged straight at the nearest enemy ship. Girls. Eyes widened in horror. "You'll crash." But at the last moment, the human twisted the controls. His cannons fired, striking the enemy point blank. The explosion lit the sky like a second sun. The shockwave rocked them, but the human held steady. Guiding the ship through the fire, the girl gasped, her tears spilling freely. She could not believe it. He was winning. One by one, the enemy ships fell, until only silence remained. The sky cleared, smoke and fire drifting in the distance. The ship shook with damage, but it still flew. The human leaned back, his chest rising and falling. With deep breaths, his face was tired, but his eyes still burned with fire. The girl stared at him, her heart racing. She had seen death chasing them, and she had seen him defy it. For her? For a stranger he did not know. Her voice trembled as she whispered, "Why? Why do this for me?" The human looked at her, his face calm. "Because you deserve to live." The words broke her. She buried her face in the blanket, sobbing. For the first time in her life, someone had fought for her. Someone had chosen her. Not because she was strong, not because she was useful, but because she was alive. And in that fragile moment, her fear turned into something new. Trust, humanity's fire. The smoke of battle still lingered in the air. The ship's hull was scarred, its engines groaned, and warning lights blinked red across the control panel. Yet, it still flew. It flew because the human refused to let it fall. The alien girl sat quietly, clutching the blanket tighter around her. Small frame. Her heart had not slowed since the battle. She could still hear the roar of engines, still see the enemy ships burning in the sky. She looked at the human, who sat steady at the controls, his eyes sharp, his face calm. Though sweat glistened on his forehead, he had faced death without fear. He had fought against impossible odds. He had won. Her people would have called it madness. They would have called him reckless, foolish even. But as she stared at him, her trembling lips whispered words she never thought she would say, strong. Human turned his head slightly, hearing her voice. His expression softened, but he said nothing. He only returned his focus to the damaged ship, guiding it through the broken skies. The alien girl's chest tightened. She had seen strength before. Her people valued it above all things. But their strength was cold, selfish. They abandoned the weak, left behind those who could not keep up. Their strength was survival at any cost. This human strength was different. He had risked everything, not to save himself, but to save her. A stranger. Someone useless, weak, and left to die. She could not understand it. And yet, it stirred. Something inside her heart. Something like fire. The ship shook as the human guided it toward a narrow valley. He searched for a safe place to land. The engines sputtered, damaged from the chase. But he held them steady with firm hands. Finally, the ship descended, landing roughly on uneven ground. The cabin shook, sparks falling from above. The human pressed a switch, and the engines powered down with a long sigh. Silence returned. The alien girl's hands were tight around the blanket. She watched as the human stood, his movements slower now, heavy with exhaustion. He checked the controls one last time, then turned toward her. "Stay here," he said firmly. "I'll check outside." Her eyes widened. "No, don't leave me." The human paused. His eyes softened as he saw the fear in hers. He gave a small nod. "I won't go far." He stepped down the hatch, his boots striking the ground outside. The alien girl hesitated only a moment before following, her weak legs trembling but moving anyway. She could not bear to be left alone again, not even for a second. Outside, the night was quiet. The stars shone above, cold and distant. The air was sharp, filled with the smell of smoke and frost. The ship stood like a wounded beast, scarred but unbroken. The human looked around the valley, scanning the shadows. His rifle rested in his hands, his eyes alert. The alien girl stayed close behind, her small steps quick to match his. "Why do they hunt us?" the human asked, his voice low, her head lowered. "Because of me." He looked at her, waiting. "My people," she whispered, her voice trembling. "They left me because I was weak, but they fear weakness. They learn I survived. They will not stop until I am gone. They cannot allow weakness to live." The human's jaw tightened. His eyes burned. He shook his head slowly. "That's not strength," he said firmly. "That's fear." Her eyes widened. She had never thought of it that way. To her people, abandoning the weak was survival. But this human saw it differently. "He called it fear," she whispered. "Then is strength." The human stopped walking. He looked at her with a steady gaze, his voice strong. "Strength is refusing to give up," he said. "Strength is standing, even when you're broken. Strength is fighting for others, even when you have nothing left for yourself." His words struck her like lightning. She stared at him, her lips parted, her breath caught. Strength, to her, had always meant leaving behind. But to him, it meant holding on. It meant refusing to abandon, even when it was easier to walk away. The human turned, scanning the horizon. "We'll have to move soon," he said. "They'll come again." The alien girl's heart pounded. "You will fight them again." "If I must," the human answered calmly. "Because I refuse to let them take you." Her knees weakened. She lowered her head, tears spilling down her cheeks. No one had ever said such words to her before. Not her family, not her people. No one had ever chosen her, but this human, this stranger, had chosen to fight. Not for himself, but for her. That night, they built a small fire at the edge of the valley. The human gathered wood, his strong hands breaking branches with ease. The alien girl sat close, her blanket wrapped tight, her eyes watching him in silence. The flames danced, pushing back the cold darkness. For the first time in days, she felt warmth, not just on her skin, but in her heart. She looked at the human's face in the firelight. His features were sharp, tired, but strong. His eyes glowed with determination, a light she had never seen in. Her people? Why are you different? She asked softly. The human's gaze remained on the fire. Because we are human, he said. We don't leave our own behind. And sometimes we don't leave strangers behind either. Her lips trembled. But I am not human. His eyes finally turned to hers, steady and firm. Doesn't matter. You're alive. That's enough for me. Her chest ached, but it was not pain. It was something else, something new. She lowered her head, her tears falling freely into the dirt, she whispered, almost to herself. You are fire in the cold. The human did not answer. He only fed another branch into the flames, the light growing stronger, brighter, pushing the darkness farther away. And as the alien girl sat beside him, she realized something she had never believed before. Strength was not abandoning the weak. Strength was fighting for them, and in that firelit night, she finally understood why humans were feared and respected across the stars. Because humans carried a fire that refused to die. Hope in the cold, the fire crackled softly in the valley, pushing back the shadows. The alien girl sat close to it, the blanket wrapped tight around her shoulders. The warmth reached her skin, but more than that, it reached a place inside her that had long been frozen. She watched the flames rise and fall. The light danced in her wide eyes, reflecting the questions burning inside her. She had lived her whole life believing that weakness was shame, that being left behind was natural, that no one would fight for someone like her. Yet the human sitting across from her had shattered those beliefs in a single night. He sat with his back straight, his rifle resting nearby. His eyes scanned the horizon, always watching, always ready. But when the firelight touched his face, she could see something else in him, calm, determination, and an unshakable will. She whispered softly, almost to herself, "Why do you not fear?" The human's gaze shifted to her. He thought for a moment, then said, "Fear is natural. Everyone feels it. But what matters is what you do, even when fear is there." Her lips trembled. I feel only fear." He leaned forward, his voice steady. "Then you are alive. Fear means your heart still beats, but you are still here, still breathing, still fighting, even if you think you're not. That is enough." Her eyes widened, her chest tightening with emotion. Still fighting. She had never thought of it that way. She thought survival was only for the strong. But he was telling her it was for anyone who refused to stop. The night grew deeper. The cold pressed at the edges of the fire, but the warmth held. The alien girl's eyelids grew heavy, but she forced herself to stay awake. She feared that if she closed her eyes, the human would vanish, and she would wake up alone again in the frozen ruins. He noticed her struggle. "Sleep," he said gently. Her head shook quickly. "No, if I sleep, you might." She could not finish the sentence. The fear of abandonment still clung to her heart like chains. The human's voice grew firm, but kind. "I will not leave. You rest. You need strength." Her tears burned in her eyes, but she nodded slowly. She lay down near the fire, her blanket pulled close. The human stayed awake, standing guard, his silhouette tall against the flames. For the first time since her people had left her, she closed her eyes without feeling completely alone. When the morning came, the world was pale and silent. The valley was still, covered with frost. The alien girl stirred, blinking against the weak light of dawn. The fire had burned low, but the human was still there, sitting watch with tired eyes. He looked at her and gave a small nod. "You're awake." She sat up slowly, her body still weak but stronger than before. She looked around, surprised at the silence. No ships, no enemies, no fire in the sky. Just quiet. "Did they return?" she asked, her voice tense. The human shook his head. Not yet. But they will. Her stomach twisted with fear, but he spoke again, calm and steady. That means we move first. He stood and began to gather supplies from the ship. His movements were sharp, efficient, but she noticed the tiredness in his shoulders. He had fought hard the night before, and yet he did not complain. He did not rest. She followed him, her steps unsteady, but she wanted to help. She carried small packs, tools, whatever her weak arms could hold. He did not tell her to stop. He only gave a short nod of approval, and for the first time, she felt useful. They set off through the valley. The human led the way, his rifle ready, his eyes scanning every shadow. The alien girl followed close, her blanket wrapped around her like armor. The cold air bit at her skin, but each step she took beside him made her feel stronger at one point. She stumbled on the uneven ground. She gasped, falling to her knees. The human turned quickly, his hand reaching down to help her. His grip was strong, pulling her to her feet with ease. "You're fine," he said simply. She nodded, her lips trembling. Her people would have left her there. They would have said she slowed them down, that she was not worth the trouble. But this human did not hesitate. He lifted her without complaint, as if her weight, her weakness, meant nothing to him. Her eyes watered as she whispered, "Why?" He met her gaze, his eyes calm. "Because leaving someone behind is not who we are." Her breath caught in her throat. "Not who we are." He spoke not just for himself, but for his kind. That was what it meant to be human. As the day stretched on, the cold grew sharper. Clouds gathered overhead, and the wind howled through the valley. The alien girl pulled her blanket tighter, but still she shivered. The human noticed. Without a word, he pulled off his heavy jacket and placed it around her shoulders. She stared at him in shock. "But you will freeze," she said softly. He shook his head. "I'll manage." Her lips trembled. No one had ever done that for her before. No one had ever chosen her comfort over their own. She clutched the jacket tightly, her tears hidden behind the frost. Each step after that felt different. She was still cold, still weak, but something warm burned inside her chest. Something she had never felt before. Hope. That night they found shelter in the ruins of an old stone building. The human started another fire, his hands steady despite the cold. The flames rose, filling the empty walls with light. The alien girl sat close, her eyes fixed on him. She whispered, "You are fire in the cold." The human gave a small smile. "Maybe, but so are you. You're still here, aren't you? That means you're stronger than you think." Her chest ached at his words. Could it be true? Could she really be strong? She had always believed she was weak, that she was nothing. But the human saw something different, and slowly, she began to believe him. That night, as she lay beside the fire, she whispered a promise to herself. She would not give up. She would not let the cold or her fear take her again. She would fight to live, not just because of the human, but because for the first time. She wanted to, and in the heart of the frozen valley, hope grew where once there had been only despair. Not because of her people, it's not because of strength as they defined it, but because of a human, a being who refused to let her die, and who lit a fire inside her she thought she would never feel again. Hope in the cold. A new beginning. The valley slept in silence. The fire had burned low, leaving only glowing embers that pulsed faintly in the cold night air. The alien girl lay wrapped in the human's jacket and the heavy blanket, her eyes half closed. Yet sleep did not come easily. She watched the human. He sat awake, as he always did, his rifle resting across his lap, his eyes fixed on the shadows beyond the ruins. His shoulders were straight, his face calm, but she could see the weight pressing on him. He had fought for her, bled for her, carried her through fire and cold, and still, he had not abandoned her. Her chest ached with feelings she could not name. Gratitude, awe, fear, hope, it all mixed together. Until her eyes burned with tears she tried to hide. Finally, she whispered, "You never rest." The human turned his head slightly, his gaze softening when it fell on her. "I'll rest when you're safe." Her breath caught in her throat. No one had ever spoken words like that for her. For her people, safety was something you earned by being strong enough to protect yourself. No one gave it freely. But this human had given it without asking anything in return. For the first time, she whispered the word with no fear, no hesitation. Only respect, human. He gave a small nod, almost like a bow, and returned his eyes to the shadows. The dawn came pale and quiet. The fire had died, and frost coated the stones. The human stood, stretching his tired limbs, and checked his equipment. The alien girl rose slowly, pulling the jacket tighter around her shoulders. Her body was still weak, but inside her heart, something had changed. She no longer felt like the helpless child left behind. She felt alive. She walked to his side, her steps light but steady. "What now?" she asked softly. The human looked to the horizon, where the sky stretched wide and endless. His voice was firm. "We keep moving. Your people will return. We must stay." Ahead, her stomach twisted at the thought. For people found them, they would kill her without a second thought. And the human, they would kill him too, for daring to protect her. Her hands trembled. They will never stop. The human turned to her, his eyes burning with quiet fire. "Neither will I." Her breath shuddered in her chest. His words were not loud, not shouted, but they carried more strength than the weapons of her people. She believed him. She truly believed him. They moved through the ruins, their steps echoing in the empty stone halls of a dead world. The human led, steady and sharp, his rifle ready. The alien girl followed close, her eyes scanning the shadows, just as he had taught her. The world was still, but silence was never safe. She felt the weight of the sky pressing down on them. Any moment she expected to hear the hum of engines, the roar of ships returning, and then it came. The sound she dreaded. The low, growing thunder of engines, breaking the silence. Froze, her eyes wide with terror. "They're here," she whispered. The human's face tightened. He pulled her close, guiding her quickly into the cover of broken walls. The shadow of enemy ships swept over the ruins, their searchlights cutting through the fog. Her heart raced. "We can't fight them all again," the human's voice was steady. "We don't have to." He pointed to the horizon, where a faint light glowed, a signal beacon pulsing through the clouds. "There," he said. "If we reach it, I can call others. My people." Her eyes widened. His people, more humans. The thought filled her with both fear and wonder. If one human had already fought for her, what would many do? The human tightened his grip on her hand. "Run." And they ran. The ruins erupted with fire. Enemy ships fired beams of light that shattered stone and sent dust into the air. The alien girl stumbled, but the human never let go of her hand. He pulled her forward, faster, stronger, his voice steady. "Don't stop. Keep moving." Her legs burned. Her lungs screamed, but she pushed herself harder than she ever had before. She was not running to escape. She was running to live. She was running toward hope. The beacon grew closer. Its light cut through the fog, a single star in the endless cold. But the enemies grew closer too. Ships roared above, soldiers dropped onto the ground, their weapons glowing. They surrounded the ruins, closing in. The alien girl gasped, her fear rising again. "We can't make it." The human turned to her, his face fierce, his eyes like fire. We will, together. Then he lifted his rifle, and the night exploded with battle. The human fought like no one she had ever seen. He moved with speed and strength, each shot precise, each strike fierce. Enemy soldiers fell one after another, but more came, their weapons flashing. The alien girl hid behind the broken walls, her hands trembling, but her eyes never left him. She saw the fire in him, the will that refused to bend, the strength that defied death itself. And for the first time, she understood the stories her people had told. Humans were dangerous. Humans were relentless. Humans were fire that could not be extinguished. But she also understood something her people never had. That fire was not just for themselves, it was for others. Even for her. The human's voice cut through the chaos. Go. Run to the beacon. She hesitated, her heart torn. Not without you. He fired another shot, his voice sharp. Go. I'll be right behind you. Her tears burned, but she turned and ran. Her feet pounded against the broken ground, her eyes locked on the beacon's light. She stumbled, fell, but pushed herself. Up again, she would not stop. Not now. Behind her, the sounds of battle roared. The human's rifle, the cries of enemies, the thunder of engines. But his voice still reached her. Keep running. She did, and with every step, the fire inside her grew. At last, she reached the beacon. She slammed her hands against the controls, and the light flared brighter, sending a signal into the sky. The engines of the enemy ships roared louder, circling closer. She turned back, her heart in her throat. The human was still fighting, his body moving with relentless will. But the enemies pressed in, too many, too fast. Her voice broke. Please, come to me. And then he did. The human broke through the last line of soldiers. His body battered, his clothes torn, but his eyes still burning with fire. He ran to her, his hand reaching out, and she caught it, pulling him close. The beacon's light cut through the sky. And then, in the distance, another sound rose. The roar of engines, not the enemies, but something new. Stronger, fiercer, more humans. The alien girl fell to her knees, clutching the human's hand. Her tears streamed freely, but they were no longer tears of despair. She whispered, her voice trembling but full of wonder. You did not let me die. The human crouched beside her, his hand resting firmly on her shoulder. His voice was steady, calm, and final. I told you, he said. You're not alone anymore. Shh. She closed her eyes, the warmth of his words filling her heart. For the first time in her life, she believed she had a future. Not because of her people, not because of strength as they defined it, but because of one human. A human who refused to let her die. And in that moment, in the frozen ruins of a dead world, something new was born. Not just survival, not just trust, but a beginning. A new beginning.